Good day, grade 12s. Welcome to Technical Mathematics. We are going to be discussing functions today. And then before we can start, I just want to advise that you must use the previous question paper and then try to look questions under functions and just to have a taste and look how these questions are being asked. And then just to prepare ourselves for this final exam. And then also you should get examination guideline for technical mathematics. Just go through that document and then read what are they saying about the functions. Then you learn everything so that we make sure that by the time we go and write the final examination, we are ready and prepared for that paper. All right, now we can start with our topic, which is function, and see what are we going to see. All right, under content we have functions, which is 35 plus or minus 3 marks, and then that is topic for paper 1. And then under functions we are going to be discussing linear function, that's number 1, that of f of x equals to mx plus c. A quadratic function, which is f of x equals to a into x plus p all squared plus q. Or they can give you in this way, f of x equals to ax squared plus bx plus c. So here it was supposed to be only x, not x squared. So we have to cancel these 2 here, plus c. And then hyperbolic function is f of x equals to a over x plus q. Exponential function, f of x equals to a times b to power x plus q. Then we go to circle and semicircle, and then of course the last one is mixed algebraic function. So remember, we have done these theorems from grade 10, 11. So now it's going to be part of the exam that we're going to be writing this next month. So let us make sure that we prepare ourselves thoroughly, and then we remind ourselves what are the things that we need to know under functions, so that by the time we go and write, we are ready. So like I've said, that please try to use previous question paper, and then let's just have a taste on how these people ask question under functions. So but today I'm going to discuss the important information that you need to know for each function that we see on the screen right now. All right, let's start and see what is going to happen. You should understand the effect of parameters such as this one of exponential, which is b to x plus q. Now I'm going to start with b. They are saying if b is greater 1, then the shape of this exponential is going to be like this. That is going to be the shape of the exponential. All right. And then we are saying if b is between 0 and 1, meaning b is greater 0 and less than 1, and therefore this is going to be the shape of the exponential graph. It's going to be the shape of the exponential graph. So that is the effect of that b. And then what about q? They are saying q is the vertical shifting. It's either the graph is going up or down. And then again, q determines the horizontal asymptote. It determines the horizontal asymptote. And then now we go to hyperbolic, y equals to a over x plus q. They are saying if a, let me just try a, if a is greater 0, and therefore the hyperbolic function is going to be on the first and the third quadrant. And then if a is less than 0, this is going to be the shape of the exponential. It's going to be in the second and the third quadrant. And then we go to q. They say q is the vertical shifting. It's either the graph is going up or down. And again, q, it does give us what? The horizontal asymptote. Horizontal asymptote. And the vertical asymptote, it will always be x equals to 0. That one you should know, that asymptote for this, the vertical asymptote, it will always be x equals to 0. But as for q, it does change. So it will depend on the question that we're having. Then we go to parabola. It's say a. They are saying if a is greater than 0, the parabola graph is going to face up. If a is positive there. Now, if a is what? A is less than 0, meaning it's negative, then the graph is going to face down. The graph is going to face down. So that is the effect of what? A. And then if P is horizontal shifting, it's either the graph is going to the left or to the right. And then again, P, it determines the x value of the turning point. Now, if you take it there from the equation, if it's positive, here it's going to be negative what? It's going to be negative P is 2. And then the value of Q is it's also at y value, the y value of the turning point. And again, Q is the vertical shifting. It's either the graph is going up or the graph is going down. So that those are the effects of these parameters. And again, the things that we should also master under function, you must be able to know how to sketch each function, such as exponential, a parabola, and then you only be able to sketch if you know how to find the x and y intercept, the turning point for parabola, the asymptote for exponential and parabolic. Then you'll be able to sketch the every graph. And then now we have to be able to find the equation of the function if the sketch is given. And then understanding the concept of asymptote and axis of symmetry is very important. Domain and the range. You must be able to determine the domain and the range, and interpretation of the graphs. That's also important. But this one of domain and the range, as asymptote, axis of symmetry, we are going to be discussing it later on. All right. I think this is for this slide. I did explain everything, the effect of these parameters. Everything is being explained. I hope it will make sense to you. So let us make sure that whatever is in this slides that needs your attention, make sure that you practice that, and then you prepare for this coming final exam. Then I'm going to start with parabola here. We can see that we're having two standard equation of parabola. The first one, if you remember, I did explain. Remember while we were explaining what is the effect of A, P, and Q. So, and then it's either you also given in this manner. So I will also explain this one as well. Then we have two graphs, the red and the green one. Now, what is the domain of the parabola graph? The domain of the parabola graph, it will always be x is the element of all real numbers. It will never change. And then when you go to range, they are saying y is greater or equals to q. Meaning, and remember what I said about q. I said q is what? Is the value of y on the turning point. Meaning, there is no way we can be able to determine the range if we don't have the turning point, because from the turning point, we are looking for the value of y so that we can determine the range. All right. So that's how you should now determine the range of parabola graph. Y-intercept, you let x to be 0, then you solve for y. X-intercept, you let y equals to 0, and then you solve for x. Now the turning point, I did explain the turning point. Let me just remove this one. Sorry for this. All right. Now I did explain the issue around about the turning point. If we are giving in the standard form, I said you don't have to calculate the turning point. If you have P, you have Q, you have the coordinates of a turning point. Now remember, when you take this P here, you take it to the point, hence you see negative P. And then Q, you take it as it is, this is going to be Q, then you have a turning point. All right. Now, what will happen if is now given in this standard form? What are you going to do? You are going to be using this formula, which is x equals to negative b over 2a. And then this is going to help you to determine what? To determine the value of x on the turning point. You can see b, there is b there. You mean that you take the coefficient of what? X. And then 2a, the coefficient of x squared. Then you just substitute them there, and then you get the value of x on the turning point. To get y, you take the value that you have obtained from this one to original equation, so that you can get the value of the value of y of the turning point. Now the line of symmetry, if you have to determine the equation of symmetry, the line of symmetry, you take what is inside this bracket, which is x plus p, then equate it to 0 so that we can be able to solve the value of x. Then you will transpose that p that side. Hence you see x equals to negative p. And then if it is in this form, then you will have to use this formula that we talked about when we are dealing with the turning point. This formula, it will also give you what? It will also give you the equation of symmetry. The equation of symmetry. That is all for parabola graph, and we can go to other equations. All right, now we can proceed. Then we have what? A straight line graph. A straight line graph, A and Q, they are saying the domain. The domain of a straight line graph is x is the element, supposed to be x is the element of all real numbers. It will always be like that. And then the range is y is the element of what? Y is the element of all real numbers. And then y intercept is the value, is this q. Then if you let x to be 0, then you're going to be left with q. Hence they are saying y intercept is equals to q. And then what? X intercept, let y equals to 0, and so that you can be able to solve the value of x, increasing or decreasing. If a is greater 0, meaning is this the red one, this graph is increasing. The graph is increasing because a is positive there. The gradient is positive. And this green one, it decreases. That's where a is less than 0, meaning the gradient is negative. So this the green one is decreasing, while the red one is increasing. That is for the straight line graph. And then we go to exponential. Exponential function, we have the domain. The domain is x is the element of all real numbers. It will also never change. It will never change. The domain for exponential is x is the element of all real numbers. Or we can say x is the element of negative infinity to positive infinity. And then range y greater q. For us to be able to determine the range, it depends on the value of q. All right, on the value of q. So you can also write the range as y is the element of q to positive infinity. To positive infinity. So that is the value of what? That is the range of the exponential graph. Y-intercept, let x to be 0 to solve y. X-intercept, let y to be 0 to solve for x. There is no turning point for exponential. And then asymptote, we have only one asymptote, which is the horizontal asymptote, which is y equals to q. If they ask you to determine the equation of asymptote, you will say y equals to the value of q. Meaning if the value of q is not there, if q is not there, it tells you that the y equals to 0. All right? So that's how you should determine the asymptote of exponential graph. And then we go to hyperbolic function. Let's look into this domain. The domain is x is the element of all real numbers, but x should not be equals to 0. The domain of exponential graph, it will always be this. It will never change. Why x is the element of all real numbers, but x should not be equals to 0, because if you substitute 0 here, then it's going to make this to be undefined. And then we go to the range. Y is the element of all real numbers, but y should not be equals to q. Any value that will come here, and then we'll say the domain is y is the element of all real number, but y should not be equals to that number here, and they can see it's q there. And then y-intercept, you let x to be 0 and solve for y. X-intercept, let y equals to 0, solve for x. No turning point for the hyperbolic. Asymptotes, we have two asymptotes, x equals to 0, y equals to q. This one of x equals to 0, it will always be x equals to 0, it will never change. But now the horizontal asymptote will depend on the with the value of what? With the value of q. So you just say y equals to that value. Hence we just put q in there to show that when you have q, you've got the horizontal asymptote. All right. And then the green graph, you can see the green one, it is in the second quadrant and the fourth quadrant, meaning the value of a for that graph is negative. And then the red graph, first and the third, it shows that the value of a is positive. That is for hyperbolic function. All right, now let's try to answer questions now and see if we can apply what we have just learned, now. The graph below represent h of x equals to negative x squared minus 3x plus 10 and g of x equals to negative mx plus 10. The two graphs intersect at point A and C. The coordinates of A and B. Let's look at the coordinate of this A, this is B, meaning we have to calculate the x-intercept of the parabola graph. And then we know when we have to determine the x-intercept of the parabola graph, we let y to equals to 0. Let's see if that is the case. X-intercept will let y to be 0, where you see y substitute 0. You can see that is the answer. You equate to 0, then from there you have to factorize it, but now we cannot factorize while the coefficient of x squared is negative. Hence we divide everything with negative. Then from there, the third step, we can now factorize x plus 5, x minus 2. All right, and then you solve the value of x equals to negative 5, and then x equals to 2. So it's very clear from this that the coordinates of a is negative 5, because it will depend on the quadrant. It's negative 5. Then x, the coordinate of b is what? The coordinate of b is 2:0. Now, the number one, they are saying the coordinates of a and b. So majority of learners, they sometimes just after getting the x value, they just stop there. And then remember, the question is very clear. Say coordinates of a and b. So these are the coordinates of a, these are coordinates of b. So it must be like that. All right. Now the coordinate of c, when you look at c, is what? C is y-intercept of straight line, and then y-intercept of parabola graph. So either anyone you can use is fine. You can also get the coordinates of C using the straight line, or we can use the parabola graph. Let's see, you let y equals to y-intercept, let x to be 0, and then you take this one where you see x, you just substitute 0, then the coordinate of C is going to be 0 is to 10. Those are the coordinates of what? Those are the coordinates of C. Number 3, the coordinates of the turning point D. Let's determine the coordinates of a turning point, and then this is what we are having. Now, because it is in this form, remember you are using a formula which is x equals to negative b over 2a. That will help you to determine the value of x. That will determine the value of x. You can see the value of x in this one of the turning point is negative 3 over 2. Then to get the y corresponding value, you substitute that to the original, and you substitute this, and then from there you get the answer, which is 49 over 4. So the coordinates of D is negative 3 over 2 is 249 over 4. So that's how you should determine what the coordinates of turning point. The graph of f of x equals to a x squared plus bx plus c and g of x equals to x minus 3 are drawn below. The coordinate of D is 0 is to 1, and the axis of symmetry of parabola is equals to 1. The graphs intersect at A and B. A is the x-axis, E is turning of the f of x. Calculate the coordinate of B. Where is B? They want the coordinate of B. So this is the point of intersection. Now let's see on how do we determine the coordinate of B. For you to be able to determine the coordinate of B is when you equate the two equations. Equate this one and you equate this one. All right. And then now we are moving to, for instance, if we are given the equation of parabola like this, then we have to equate it to this with the straight line one. And then from there, you multiply each term by the denominator of this fraction. You multiply each term by 3. Then this is what you're going to obtain. Let me just remove this one for you so that you can be able to see. All right. Now this equation of parabola, I think it was determined before. So now we just have to get the coordinate of B. All right, but now to get the coordinate of B, you just have to equate the two graphs, the equation of parabola together with the equation of a straight line, so that you can be able to get the coordinates. Then after this, you transpose and then add the like terms. But since the coefficient of x squared is negative, you divide with negative. And this is what we're going to have. Then you factorize x plus 4 and x minus 3 equals to 0. Then you solve the value of x there. Now it's very clear that this point is on which quadrant? On the third quadrant. So how is the x in that quadrant is negative? So meaning we're going to use this negative 4. Then to get the y value, you take this negative 4 to one of this equation, and then the y equals to negative 7. Y will be negative 7. Determine the coordinate of E, where the turning point of the parabola the coordinate of E is 1 is to y, because it was given from the scenario that the axis of symmetry of the parabola is x equals to 1, meaning axis of symmetry is a line that passes through the turning point and then cut through what? Y-intercept. So y-axis. So this point is 1. So we only have to get the value of y so that we can have the coordinates of E. And then you take this value of y the value of x, which is 1, you substitute to this equation of parabola, and then it gives us y as 4/3. So these are the coordinates of E. The graph below is given by f of x equals to a b or x plus q. The coordinates of b is 0 to -2 lie on the lie on the line BC. The asymptote of f of x passing through b, and the coordinate of a is 0 to 1. Determine the value of a, b, and q. We need these values. We need this also this q. Let's see on how do we determine those. Now it's very clear from this, q is what? Q is -2. Q is -2 because now we are having the coordinates of this b, and then we said q is what? We said q is horizontal asymptote, and the horizontal asymptote in this case cuts y at 2, hence we are saying -2. And then now if we want b, I'm going to use which point? The coordinate of a, which is 0 to 1. 0 to 1. Then for y, it's 1. For x is 0. Therefore, we say this. Then it's going to help us to get the value of a, because b to power 0 is 1. 1 times a is a. So a is equals to 1. Then we are left with what? B. We take this one. We are now looking for the value of b. The value of b, we then transpose. Let's transpose then. That's going to give us 12. Now, because we are in need of b, you can do what? You can, let me check if everything is correct. The value of correct. And then the value of b is what? Is 2 square root of what? 2 square root of 3. That is the value of what? The value of b. All right. That is the value of b. And then from there we have to determine the range of f of x. We said for exponential, for you to have the range, you need to know our horizontal asymptote. You can see why is the element of -2 is equal to infinity, because 2 is what? It's value of q. And then now you can see the graph is going up there, which is positive infinity. So that is the range for this graph. The graph defined by f of x equals to a over x plus q is drawn below. The graph cuts the x-axis at -2. Determine the numerical value of q. And then I did explain q is the horizontal asymptote, and again, it's the vertical shifting. Now let's see on how do we determine the value of b. Q. You don't have to calculate. You can all see that the horizontal asymptote is where y equals to 2, meaning y equals to 2. That is the first one. The second one, numerical value of a. Now, for you to be able to get the value of a, you need a point on the two curves. And then the only point that we have is this one, where x is -2 and y is 0. We're going to use that point. Then you're going to substitute the point. You transpose this positive to that side. You do what you call cross multiply. Then the answer, or the value of a, equals to 4. So that's how you should determine the value of a. Number 3, the equation of asymptote. The equations of asymptote, I did explain that the vertical asymptote, it will always be x equals to 0. X equals to 0, y equals to 2, because I did explain that this q, it gives us the equation of what? Equation of asymptote. And then the last one, the domain of f. The domain of f, let's check the domain of f. I said the domain will x is the element of all real numbers, but x should not be equals to 0. To always be this, the domain of f of x, or the exponential, a hyperbolic function. So because there we are dealing with exponential, hyperbolic function, not exponential. The exponential is we did previously. Now we are dealing with hyperbolic. Given the function g of x equals to 1 over 2 power x minus 4. It's very clear this one is what? Is exponential. And then the value of b, you can see is 1 over 2, meaning it's between 0 and 1. And then I did explain how it's going to be the shape of exponential if b is between 0 and 1. And then the straight line h of x equals to negative x, negative 4. Is the graph g an increasing or decreasing? This graph is decreasing. The graph is decreasing function because this graph is going to be like this. This is going to be the shape of the graph. So that graph is decreasing, while this one is increasing. This one is increasing. All right. Write down the equation of asymptote of g. Y equals to -4. That is the first one. Because I said we have only one asymptote for exponential. Number 3, determine the x and y intercept of g. X-intercept, let y to 0. This is 0, you transpose 4. You make the base to be the same. If the bases are the same, you create the exponent. The value of x equals to -2. And then x-intercept, let x equals to 0. Just put 0 there. The answer is going to be what? -3. The domain of exponential, I said it will never change. Is x is the element of all real numbers. It does not change. The graph of a semicircle defined by h of x equals to plus square root of 4 minus x squared, centered at the origin, and exponential function defined by g of x equals to 2x, 2 to the power x plus q are drawn below. Determine the coordinate of a and b. Coordinate of a and b. So in order for us to get the coordinate of a, we need to know what is the radius of this semicircle. Now we have r squared, which is 4. You can see, remember the standard equation of semicircle is where you see 4, there must be r squared. So instead of r squared, there is 4. So meaning r squared equals to 4. And then if you're in need of radius, you put squared, you square both sides, square root both sides, then you have r equals to 2. Meaning the coordinates of a is what? -2 is to 0. Of b is 2 is to 0. All right. The numerical value of q for exponential, then we're going to, since we don't have what? If we don't have horizontal asymptote, then we need a point on that curve. At that point that we're having is this one, 0 to 2. We are going to substitute x and y, which is this, and then from there you have 2 to the power 0 is 1. You transpose that one that side. 2 minus 1 is equal to 2. Is equal to 1. Then the value of q is equals to 1. All right. Then the value of x for which g of x is less than g of x. Now this one, how do we answer it? Meaning the graph of g should be below the graph of h of x. in order for this graph of G to be less of G, meaning this graph must be below the H of S. So the graph of G is only below from this point here to this one. That's where the graph of G is less than H of X. Now we need the value of X, meaning if we can check the value of X here, it's negative 73 over 50. And then the value of X there is 0. It's between that. It's between negative 73 over 50 and 0. So how are you going to answer it? Let me check. This is what you want to do, because it's between. We don't have to go this direction, or we don't have to go in this direction. So it's between negative 72 over 50 and 0. So here, this is what the value of X. Of course, the range of G, the range is y equals to, y is the element of 1 is to positive infinity, or we can write it as this. You can write, let me just write y is greater 1, because asymptote is equals to 1, asymptote. So meaning there is no way you can determine the range of exponential graph if you don't have the asymptote. You need to have asymptote first. All right. All right. Thank you very much for being with me on this very interesting lesson. I hope everything that we have discussed is going to help you to prepare for the coming final exam. And then before I leave, I can just give you this very encouraging words that says, never give up. Today is harder, tomorrow will be worse, but the day after tomorrow will be sunshine. Thank you very much. Bye.